Decoded.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Book Decoded. Today we are going to be looking at How to Listen with Intention by Patrick King. I think we all think we're pretty good listeners. This book really kind of makes you question that.
Yeah.
Like imagine a therapist, and they just totally miss the point of what their client is saying.
Yeah.
That's kind of a problem. And it turns out that miscommunication is like way more common than we realize.
Right.
And it often comes down to just like not really truly listening.
It's funny how often we think we're listening, but really we're just like kind of waiting for our turn to speak.
Oh, totally. And the crazy thing is, it's not like we're bad people, right? It's just that we're kind of wired for this thing called conversational narcissism.
Yeah, and it's not being a narcissist in like the clinical sense, right?
Right.
It's just this natural tendency that we have as humans to like bring the conversation back to ourselves.
So it's not like we're being intentionally rude or anything. We're just being human. And Patrick King highlights this study from Harvard that found that like sharing information about ourselves actually triggers the same reward centers in our brain as food and sex.
Yeah.
Wait, are you serious? So like spilling the tea is as satisfying as like a big slice of chocolate cake.
It really is. It's a biological urge. So while it's natural to want to share our own experiences, it also makes it really hard to actually listen to other people.
That's so interesting.
We're literally wired to want to talk about ourselves.
Wow. Okay, that's a real light bulb moment for me.
Uh-huh.
But okay, so if we're all battling this like biological urge to self-promote, how do we actually become better listeners?
One of the keys is understanding the difference between what sociologist Charles Derber calls support responses and shift responses. Support responses keep the focus on the speaker, encouraging them to share more.
So like instead of jumping in with our own story, we like keep the spotlight on them.
Exactly. It could be as simple as saying something like, "What happened next?" Or, "That's so interesting." You're helping to keep their story in the air.
Oh, I love that analogy. So what about shift responses? Are they always a bad thing?
Not necessarily. They can kind of derail a conversation if they're overused.
Okay.
Shift responses pull the focus back to ourselves.
Look, so it's like that person at a party who always has a story to top yours.
Yeah.
We all know that person.
The book gives this great example of a conversation about French films. One person says, "I love French films," and the other person responds with, "Yeah, I've never cared much about movies. The other day, actually, I saw this thing at the cinema."
Oh, wow. You could just like hear that conversation happen. It's so subtle, but it just totally shifts the focus.
Right.
But if we're constantly using those shift responses, are we basically like turning a dialogue into a monologue about ourselves?
And the book argues that this can have a real impact on our relationships and opportunities.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just about being polite. It's about being strategic.
Yeah.
If we want to build stronger relationships, we need to be good listeners.
Yeah. When you genuinely listen to someone, you're showing them respect and making them feel valued. And that can go a long way in building trust and connection.
Absolutely. But, honestly, becoming more aware of these conversational patterns feels kind of daunting. Is it just about trying harder to be a good person?
It's more about becoming aware of our motivations for entering conversations. Are we seeking validation? Are we trying to prove ourselves right? Or are we genuinely interested in connecting with the other person?
Wow, those are some really tough questions.
Yeah.
But I can see how understanding our own intentions can help us become more conscious listeners. So are there specific strategies that we can use to become more other-focused in our conversations?
Absolutely. The book talks about psychologist Larry Barker's 4 communication styles:
Okay.
people-oriented, content-oriented, action-oriented, and time-oriented. And what's interesting is that mismatched styles can lead to these frustrating conversations where you feel like you're speaking different languages.
You mean like when one person just wants to vent about their day?
Yeah.
And the other keeps offering solutions?
Exactly.
I've definitely been on both sides of that.
Recognizing these different styles can change how we approach communication. For example, if you're talking to someone who's very people-oriented, they might just need to feel heard and validated.
So sometimes the best thing we can do is just listen and empathize rather than trying to fix the problem.
Exactly. Now, King connects these listening styles to something he calls head, heart, and hands, preferences in communication.
Okay.
People who lead with their head tend to focus on facts and logic.
Mm-hmm.
Heart-centered folks prioritize emotions and connection.
Okay.
And then there are the hands people who are all about taking action and solving problems.
Well, that's such a helpful way to think about it. It's like that doctor who focuses on the medical facts, the manager who wants to know what actions you've taken, and the friend who just wants to hear how you feel.
Exactly. Understanding these preferences can help us decode why people frame problems and engage with information in different ways. It's all about building empathy and understanding.
Okay, so we've talked about conversational narcissism, different listening styles, and the importance of empathy. But does the book actually give us any practical tips for becoming better listeners?
Yeah, definitely. King outlines these 5 distinct levels of listening, ranging from simply ignoring someone to reaching empathetic listening, which we've kind of been talking about.
Okay.
He points out that most people get stuck at the lower levels, like selective listening, pretending to listen, and judging.
Oh, no. Are you saying that all those times I nodded along while secretly thinking about what I was going to have for dinner don't count as good listening?
Well, let's just say there's room for improvement. The book uses these hilarious examples to illustrate these lower levels of listening, like this one conversation about a refrigerator policy and a squirrel.
Wait, what? I don't remember that part. Tell me more.
It's a great example of how easily we can get distracted and tune out when we're not truly engaged in a conversation. But the good news is there are specific techniques we can use to become more active listeners.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are these magical techniques?
They all revolve around the idea that listening is an active process.
Okay.
It's not something that just happens passively while we're waiting to talk. We have to be intentional about it.
Right?
Some of the techniques King outlines include asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what we've heard, and summarizing the speaker's main points.
So instead of just nodding along, we're actively engaging with what they're saying and making sure we understand?
Exactly. Imagine a friend is telling you about a tough situation at work. Instead of jumping in with advice or trying to fix it, you could use active listening techniques to create space for them to share more. You might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated. Can you tell me more about what happened?"
That's such a simple but powerful example. It shows that you're not just listening, you're trying to understand their perspective.
Yeah.
But isn't there a danger of sounding like a parrot if we're constantly reflecting back what they're saying?
That's a great question. Active listening isn't about mimicking or repeating verbatim. It's about capturing the essence of what they're communicating, verbally and non-verbally.
So it's about reading between the lines and paying attention to their tone and body language.
Exactly. And that brings us to another level of listening mastery, empathetic reflection.
Okay, so we're going deeper. Tell me more about this empathetic reflection thing.
It goes beyond simply understanding. It's about embodying the other person's perspective, stepping into their shoes and experiencing the world through their eyes.
So we're not just acknowledging their feelings, we're trying to actually feel them too.
In a way, yes. It's about connecting with them on a deeper emotional level. And that doesn't mean trying to fix their emotions or offer unsolicited advice, but simply validating their experience without judgment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly. Empathetic reflection is about showing that care. King gives some great examples of phrases we can use, things like "that makes sense" or "it seems like such and such is the case. Have I understood you properly?"
Those are really helpful. They convey that you're truly trying to see things from their point of view. But what about those times when someone is expressing an emotion that seems completely out of proportion to the situation? Do we still validate that?
That's a really important question, and this is where the concept of validation comes in.
Okay.
While empathy is about understanding and sharing someone's feelings, validation goes a step further.
So how is it different?
It's about acknowledging the validity of their emotions and perspective, even if we don't necessarily agree with them.
So it's like saying, hey, I see you, your feelings are real, and they matter, even if we might have reacted differently in that situation.
Exactly. And the book highlights this fascinating study from the University of Rochester.
Okay.
Researchers found that validating even small positive experiences led to increased trust and generosity between people.
Wow. So it's not just about making someone feel good in the moment. It actually has a ripple effect on the relationship.
Exactly. And the book breaks validation down into 2 crucial steps: identifying the emotion and justifying it.
Okay, I can see how that would be important. Could you give us some examples of effective and ineffective validation responses?
Sure. Imagine someone is venting about a frustrating experience at work.
Okay.
An ineffective response might be something like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal." That dismisses their feelings and invalidates their experience.
Right. It's like saying their feelings aren't justified.
Wow.
Oh, I've definitely been guilty of that one.
We all have. A more effective validation response might be, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated, and that's completely understandable. Anyone would feel that way in this situation."
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. You're acknowledging the emotion, normalizing it, and showing that you understand why they're feeling that way.
Exactly. And King even outlines a 6-step process for effective validation developed by therapist Kate Theda.
6 steps. I'm sensing a theme here. It seems like becoming a good listener really is a skill that takes practice and intention. It's not something we can just wing.
You're right, and King emphasizes that this conscious effort is key. It's about actively choosing to listen with intention, rather than passively letting conversations happen around us.
So are you saying we need to bring this level of intentionality to every single interaction?
That might be a bit unrealistic, but the more we practice these techniques, the more they become second nature.
Okay, so it's like building a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. It's about understanding and managing our own emotions, as well as recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others.
I've heard a lot about emotional intelligence, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on how it actually works. Could you break it down for me?
Sure. The book highlights Daniel Goleman's model, which includes 4 key components: self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation, and social awareness.
Okay.
And each of these plays a crucial role in becoming a better listener.
Okay. I'm starting to see the connection here. But how does understanding our own emotions help us understand others?
Think about it this way. If you're not aware of your own emotional triggers, you're more likely to project your own feelings onto others. But if you have a good grasp of your own emotional landscape, you can approach conversations with more clarity and objectivity.
So it's like putting on your own oxygen mask before helping others.
Exactly. And social awareness in particular is critical for effective listening.
So it's not just about what people are saying, but how they're saying it.
Exactly. It's about picking up on those subtle cues in a conversation. Tone of voice, body language, facial expressions. It's about reading between the lines and understanding the unspoken messages.
It makes me think of that story from the book about Paul, the electronics store employee who completely missed a sale because he didn't pick up on the customer's subtext.
Right.
He took their "it's fine" at face value, when really they were hoping for something more.
That's such a great example of how missing those subtle cues can lead to miscommunication and missed opportunities.
So how do we become better at decoding subtext? Do we need to go full-on Sherlock Holmes?
Not quite. King suggests focusing on 3 key areas: analyzing tone of voice, observing how people respond to us, and noticing deviations from their usual behavior patterns.
That sounds doable.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my brain is doing bicep curls after all this talk about active listening. But
Yeah.
seriously, we've covered so much. From conversational narcissism and all those sneaky shift responses to the power of empathetic reflection and validation. Like, where do we even begin?
It's quite a journey from simply hearing words to actually understanding the person behind them.
So true. What does all this mean for us, like in our daily lives? I'm ready to put all these listening superpowers into action, but where do I even start?
I think the key is to start practicing. The more we use these techniques, the more natural they will become. It's like learning any new skill. It takes time and effort, but the rewards are worth it.
Totally. I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is just the importance of being present. It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts and our never-ending to-do lists.
Yeah.
But when we make that conscious effort to truly focus on the other person, it just makes a huge difference.
I completely agree. Being present is the foundation of effective listening. And it's not just about being physically present, but also mentally and emotionally present, putting aside our own agenda and really truly being there for the other person.
Yeah. And that can be really hard, in our busy, always-on world. But as we've been learning today, it's also incredibly rewarding. When we truly listen to someone, we're giving them this gift of feeling heard, understood, and valued.
And that gift, as cheesy as it might sound, can have this ripple effect.
Yeah.
It strengthens relationships, builds trust, and creates this more positive and connected world.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into how to listen with intention, I want to leave you with a question to think about. Think about a recent conversation where you felt truly heard. What made that experience so powerful? And how can you bring that same level of listening to your next interaction?
It's a question worth asking ourselves every day because in a world that's often too busy talking, the ability to truly listen is this rare and precious gift.
That is beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Book Decoded. Until next time, happy listening.